over their life. I just like to have fun, you know? I wouldn't say it's who I am or anything like that.
Well, welcome, guys. Welcome to The Well. If you haven't joined us for a couple of weeks, you haven't been with us for a few weeks, we are in a series called The Christian Atheist, and we are so excited that you guys have joined us here tonight. I want to start just with a question. Can I just get a show of hands real quick? How many of you guys would say you have a weak stomach? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you see something really gross, and it makes you, like, just want to throw up. Like, anybody? Seriously? There's like two come on, raise them high. Be proud. It's okay. So that means there are 3 people in the 40-something people that are here right now that have weak stomachs. So if I made you watch like a birth. Bring it on. All right. Well, okay, I'll be honest. I don't have like that weak of a stomach, but I would have been one of the few, I guess, apparently in our crowd here tonight that would say like I kind of have a weak stomach. And I'll tell you this, like, being a dad, raising a baby, changes like how strong you think your stomach is, okay? So we have to do this thing called like changing a diaper. Prior to having a kid, I was like, man, that's no big deal. Like, I got this. They always said like it's different if it's your own child. Like, it's okay. No, it ain't. Okay, no, it's not. Having your own child and the smell is still there. All right? And there's a purpose to me asking you this question, but like there are certain times that like I'm good, right? And I'm gonna be just really kind of, this is gonna be gross for a minute, but like there's a couple different ways that a baby goes to the bathroom, right? We know number 1, right? But when they go number 2, if it's like compact, you following me? Like I can do that, no big deal, right? We're taking off, wipey, we're good to go, right? But there's this other thing that babies do. It's like, I wouldn't even consider it number 2. It's like number 3. It's a combination of 1 and 2, and it's an explosive mess of like, I'm wanting to like hurl before I even get to the bedroom to change his diaper. I mean, like it's that kind of thing. Like he's walking around the house and you can smell it from the other side of the house, okay? So it's like, I mean, it changes a man, okay? You thought you had a strong stomach, but it's like, Jesus, help us all because this is not going to be a good situation, okay? I'm serious. And it's like this moment of like, you just want to vomit, okay? Can you guys say vomit? You ready? Vomit. Okay, one more time with like Can we say vomit, okay? So there's a purpose that, thanks for rolling with me for the 3 people that admitted that they have a weak stomach, but for everybody else, forget you. Okay, but there's a reason I'm asking that. We'll get to that here in just a minute, but we're in this series called The Christian Atheist, and if you're new, if you're asking like, okay, what is a Christian atheist? Well, we know what an atheist is, right? An atheist is someone that is anti-theistic. They're anti-theology. They do not believe that there is a God or a higher being. So we know an atheist is probably going to live a certain way, right? They're probably going to live as if there is not a God. It makes sense. That's what an atheist does. A Christian, we know, is defined as little Christ. That term, that name came around Paul's ministry. We read about it in Acts chapter 2, chapter 3. That was the name that was given to the Christ followers. It literally means little Christ. It was almost like an action figure is what they were referring to the Christ followers as. So if you're a Christ follower, if you consider yourself a Christian, you follow God, right? That's what you do. So if you're a Christian atheist, that means you're probably professing, yes, I believe in God, but my life reflects more of that atheistic lifestyle than it does a Christ follower. So that's what a Christian atheist was. If you're with us on week 1, we were kind of talking about those who believe in God but don't know Him, right? We kind of broke that down. Last week we talked about those who believe in God but do not fear Him. And then next week, we're going to finish out this series and talking about those who believe in God, but don't necessarily want to give every area of my life over to God. They don't trust Him fully. That's really the essence of what we're going to be talking about next week. Kind of that thing where it's like, God, I'm all in, but not really all in. I still want to hold on to these particular things. It's going to be an awesome week. But tonight is probably my favorite of all 4 of these messages, and this is kind of the most hard-hitting one. I'll be very honest and upfront with you. Like, this is going to be one that's going to challenge all of us. I'll be quite frank with you. It challenged me in preparation, and I'll share a little bit of that here in just a little bit. But tonight, we're going to talk about those who believe in God but don't want to go overboard for God. Those of us that say, yeah, I love the God thing. I'm all in. I follow Jesus. Yeah, I love Jesus, but I'm not willing to be considered one of those fanatics. One of those that like is going to tell people about Him. One of those that like is going to take it too far, or maybe, offend somebody, or I'm afraid to be rejected, those types of things. That's the person we're talking about tonight. I believe in God, but don't want to go overboard. In order to do this tonight, we're going to look at the book of Revelation. Not one that we just referred to a whole lot, because most of us think of the book of Revelation as like death and the end of times, okay? But there's a piece of Revelation I want to pull apart tonight. It's in Revelation chapter 3. And I want to give you just a little bit of the context that we're going to be reading about in Revelation chapter 3. In the book of Revelation, the first couple of chapters of the book of Revelation, Jesus, through John, is writing to 7 churches, that's 4, to 7 churches, all right, in the area, okay, to the 7 main churches. So he's writing 7 different letters to 7 different churches. 6 of those 7 letters are great, encouraging letters with a little bit of correction in them, right? So Jesus is like, man, you guys are doing a great job with this, and this. Maybe work on this, but everything else, hey, kudos to you guys. That's what he's doing. And then we get to this other letter. And he writes this letter to a church at Laodicea, is the name of the city. Laodicea, and he comes right out of the gates with, this is what you're doing wrong. Basically saying, like, there is nothing that you guys have been doing that is right. And this is what I'm going to tell you. This is what I have for you. He went straight into correction. Now, let me give you a little bit of history on Laodicea. Laodicea was this area, this city, that was known for their wealth. Very, very wealthy community. All right, 35 years before this letter was actually written to Laodicea, there was this massive earthquake in the area, and it wiped out 90% of the city. Almost everything in the city was gone, but because they were incredibly wealthy, they could spring those buildings right back up and had no problem, and it was even better than it was before. Right, so there is this mindset and understanding that this area is incredibly wealthy. They respond well, right? They were known for their massive theaters. Right, these show theaters. They were known for their stadiums, for these, kind of like the movie Gladiator in a lot of ways like that, okay? So things like that. They were known for their shopping areas, these massive, lavish public baths, these types of things. So that's what they were known for. So kind of imagine something like out in the middle of nowhere, you've got Vegas, right? Vegas is like this lush and, there's parts of Vegas that are like lush and lavish, but lush and lavish things where you got roller coasters they didn't have roller coasters then, but if you thought they had did anybody think they actually had roller coasters? Cool. Okay, it's gonna be a hard night. All right, they didn't. Marshall thought there was. Great. Okay, but that kind of deal, right? Maybe another example would be like Dubai, right? In the middle of nowhere, this massive, huge, lush and lavish, wealthy city sprung up out of absolutely nowhere and is known for that. Okay. This is what Jesus said to this very wealthy, very blessed community. He said this in Revelation chapter 3, verse 15. He said, I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. He says, I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are, what? Here's our key word. Because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold. He said, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. Verse 17, he says, you say I am rich, I have acquired wealth, I don't need a thing, but you don't realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. And in verse 20, Jesus extends probably one of the most amazing invitations in the text of Scripture. He says, here I am, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in, and I'll eat with that person, and they with me. So Jesus is talking to the people in Laodicea, and he's saying, I know your deeds, right? He's not saying, I know what you believe, okay? He's not saying that. He's saying, I see what you are doing. I see the way that you are living, okay? He's saying, I'm not saying what you believe. I'm saying how you're living. There's a difference. Now, why? How we live actually reflects the true reality of what we believe. How you live outside of the walls of the well on Tuesday nights actually reflects the true reality of what you really believe. It's true. And I'm not just talking about what you believe, Jesus is saying, I'm talking about how you live. He said, I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot, and I wish that you were one or the other, not lukewarm. Take coffee for an example, okay? We love hot coffee, right? We love it. You can't go wrong with it. Great cup of coffee in the morning, it's hot. In recent years, we've gotten this thing, it's like a cold brew, right? Or iced coffee. We love iced coffee. But is there anything worse than lukewarm coffee? Please tell me no. Okay. There is nothing worse. Lukewarm coffee is horrible. It is one of the grossest things. Nobody likes lukewarm coffee. Okay, so great example. What's interesting, right, is if you study the city of Laodicea, they had some challenges getting water. In the area that they were in, they had some challenges getting water to their city. So what they ended up doing, they had these long underground pipes. Believe it or not, this was a real thing. They had these long underground pipes, and they would ship water in from hot springs and cold springs. That's what they did. They were ingenious, but that's what they did. What they wanted to do was get the water there as fast as they could, because they obviously didn't have microwaves, they didn't have refrigerators, they didn't have roller coasters in their building. So they had no way of keeping it hot or cold when it got there. So they needed to get there as quick as they possibly can. So hot and cold drinks were a premium, okay? At their religious festivals, before they would come together and make these sacrifices and do all these ritualistic things, what they would do was they would serve drinks to each other, right? People would get drinks. That's how it worked. Depending on how wealthy you were, how high in society you were, how prominent you were, how much you really mattered in the community, determined whether or not you were served first. And obviously, if you were served first, you got to choose between a hot or cold drink, and it was hot or cold when it came to you. But if you didn't have that kind of stature in the society, by the time they got to you, what's our key word? It was lukewarm. It was lukewarm, which is a slap in the face to the people that just did not matter. It didn't matter. They weren't important enough. It didn't matter what kind of drink they got, because either way it was going to be lukewarm. So when he uses this language, Jesus is using this more than just lukewarm, saying it's just a lukewarm drink. No, it's much deeper than that. It was speaking to the fact that we are really being dishonored when we are being served a lukewarm drink. Just like God is being dishonored if we're not either giving him hot or cold. That's what he's talking about here. If we're just saying that we are Christians but not living as if we are followers of Jesus, then we're completely dishonoring God. But believe it or not, you honor God more by saying yes or no than you do saying maybe so. Just something to think about. He said, I'd rather you be hot or cold, but instead you're lukewarm. Verse 16, let's look at that again. He said, so because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm about to do what? He said, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. Spit you out of my mouth. If you look at that word spit, it comes from a Greek word called emeo, E-M-E-O. The only place in Scripture that this word is used is right here. The only place. And it actually means to vomit. It means utter rejection. It means supremely repulsed. If you eat a bad egg sandwich, okay, you're gonna be having something coming out of every hole in your body, right? No matter how strong of a stomach you think you have, right? And everybody's like, ugh, that's disgusting. But really, that's what this word means. Everything in God is repulsed at the fact that this is lukewarm. When Jesus is saying, when you don't show any passion at all, when you are apathetic, when you are just complacent, when you just do not care, he can't stomach it. He rejects it. He wants absolutely nothing to do with it. Absolutely, supremely repulsed by it. That's what that means. Can't be near it. Doesn't want anything to do with it. Let me ask you this. Do you know what an oxymoron is? Oxymoron is it's when you take two different words that are completely opposite and you put them together, right? Like act naturally, genuine imitation, right? Tight slacks, jumbo shrimp. You get what I'm saying? Those are oxymorons. And perhaps the greatest oxymoron in the history of the world is lukewarm Christian. Lukewarm Christian. Now, what is a lukewarm Christian? We gotta break that down a little bit, right? Because it's so easy to kind of label people as a lukewarm Christian, but we don't really know what exactly that means. Now, before we dive into this, there are 70 million different ways to describe someone that we would consider a lukewarm Christian. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to kind of work with people, see these personality traits in these particular people. So I kind of put together a small list, much smaller than 70 million, 7. All right, so 7 different traits. That's what I want us to look at tonight, is 7 different traits of a lukewarm Christian. Okay, and chances are when we see these different qualities, we're probably going to either do one of two things. We're either going to have somebody in our mind and be like, yeah, okay, that is definitely that person. I see the quality traits. I see what's going on in their world. That's them. Or we're going to be on the other side of that, and we're going to say, okay, I see myself in those traits. That's me. That's what we're going to do. Some of the qualities of a lukewarm Christian. The first one is this. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. They crave acceptance from people more than acceptance from God. They crave acceptance from people more than acceptance from God. Timothy in the Bible said this, in the end days there would be people who are lovers of themselves. There would be people that are lovers of themselves. You know, we live in a very real kind of selfie-centered generation, right? I think we could say that. There's selfie sticks. That warrants a selfie-centered generation, right? It's that, do you like me? Do you approve of me? Do you care about me? Do I look okay? What do you think about this picture? Can you like it, please? Because I need to at least get the 150 likes before I feel really good about myself, right? That's. Do you like my hair? Do you like my shoes? Are my shoes okay? Do they look okay? Do they look clean enough? Did I get some dirt on them? I don't want anybody to think I'm dirty because I have dirt on my shoes. Please, I'll conform my morals to your morals because I don't want you to think I'm weird. I want to make sure that I'm involved, that I'm a part of what you're thinking, what you're doing, because I don't want to be outcast, because I want to be appreciated. I want to be approved by you. And we get to this point where we are so consumed with the acceptance of the people that are around us that not once have we considered, what does God think about who we are today? Not once. He immediately gets put on the back burner every time there's an opinion thrown at us by somebody else. Jesus actually said this. He said, beware when all men speak well of you. Beware when all men speak well of you. This is going to be a hard one for some of us to hear, but the reality is if somebody's not ticked off at you today, you're not doing something right. If everybody that you come across thinks you're amazing, you're awesome in every way, shape, and form, you're not doing something right. That's hard to hear because we're like, no, we want people to like us. But the reality is, if you are not being Jesus, Jesus is offensive. He is offensive in every way, shape, and form. But if everybody you come in contact with likes you, it's because you have conformed to who they are, not been conformed to the image of Jesus Christ in your life. That's the truth. That's a hard one to hear for some of us. In our heart and our heads, we're like, man, I want people to like me. I don't think there's anything wrong with everybody liking me. Yes, there is. Because there is somebody in your life that needs to know the offensive nature of Jesus, not for the purpose of ticking somebody off, but for the purpose of seeking righteousness and holiness and purity in your life. That's what it needs to be. So a lukewarm Christian craves the approval of people more than the approval of God. Secondly, a lukewarm Christian rarely shares their faith in Christ. A lukewarm Christian rarely shares their faith in Christ. Why? There's any number of reasons. We don't want people to think we're weird. We're afraid to be rejected. We don't want to offend people. We don't want to be, too overbearing, too much. All of those different things. And honestly, I would argue at the heart of it that it comes down to really one example, one reason at the heart of all of it. And it's that we don't actually believe who Jesus says he is. We don't actually understand and believe the power of the gospel. We don't actually, it's great in church. It's great. And that's all well and good. They're doing great. The church is doing great things. God's doing great work in people's lives. But we don't actually understand who Jesus is and what he stands for. What he did for you, what he did for me. Because if we really believed this, if we actually understood what this meant, we could not contain it. You couldn't. You cannot help but, I use this illustration all the time with you guys. You can't fit the ocean in a thimble. You can't. If you are being filled up by Jesus, if you fully understand who he really is and you are being filled up by him, you cannot help but slosh over on the people that you're around. Lukewarm Christians rarely share their faith because you can only really promote something you really believe in. You're really only going to tell somebody about what you enjoy. Or on the opposite spectrum, you're going to tell them how much you hate something. But the reality is you're only going to tell people what you really believe in. Jesus was clear about this. He says this. Jesus said, if you confess me before men on earth, I will confess to you before my Father in heaven. But if you do not confess me before people on earth, I will not confess to you before my Father in heaven. So lukewarm Christians rarely share their faith. Number 3, lukewarm Christians rationalize their sins. They rationalize their sins. We live in a day where for some reason, we have to rebrand and rename our sin, right? For example, adultery is no longer adultery. It's an affair, right? It sounds a little more mysterious, a little cleaner. It's an affair, right? Pornography is no longer really referred to as pornography. It's referred to as adult entertainment. So when you're an adult, you can be entertained by this, right? Adult language, that's what we call profanity now. Profanity, that's not really the word that we use anymore. It's adult language. Like kids, no, you can't, at 12 years old, you're not allowed to drop the F-bomb anytime you want to. But when you're at least 18, as the law says you're an adult, then you're good, right? Do you understand that we rationalize, we're rebranding and renaming sin. And what do people do? Well, we end up pointing the finger next to the person next to us, and we're saying, well, I'm not as bad as that guy, right? I'm not that bad. I'm not, this guy over here who made this decision. It's probably not the best decision. It's not really affecting anybody else, but it's not as bad as that guy. We get really, really good at justifying and rationalizing our sin, and we just want to tell people, stay out of my life. It doesn't matter to you. You don't have any reason to be a part of what's going on in my world, because the reality is, I'm not affecting you. I'm not impacting you, and we just continue to rationalize and justify our own sin. Lukewarm Christians rationalize their sin. Number 4. The lukewarm Christian thinks more about life on earth than eternity in heaven. Lukewarm Christians think more about life on earth than eternity in heaven. Yeah, there's a guy in the Bible named Paul. You might have heard of him. He said some pretty crazy things, but he said this: to live is Christ, to die is gain. Did you hear that? To live is Christ, to die is gain. He's saying to be on earth, that's for me to represent Christ. To die, I go to heaven. Right? That's way better. That's a bigger gain for me. To live is Christ, to die is gain. And what do we see on earth now? No, I don't want to die. I'm good. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I do not want to die. I would rather be 105 in diapers than die. Right? I don't want to die. And we think that we need to be more consumed with what this world has than what eternity has for us to come. That's the truth. That's the reality. Number 5, lukewarm Christians only turn to God when they need something. Lukewarm Christians only turn to God when they need something. They'll turn to God, right? We'll all turn to God at some point when we need Him. Right? It's almost like God's like this tool on the shelf, right? The weather's good, kids are happy, school's going great, work is going great. I don't really need you, God, right now. But when something goes wrong, then I need you. Everything's good right now, but oops, somebody has cancer. God, I'm going to pull you off the shelf, use you as just this moment in this situation. God, I really need you right now. I need you to heal this cancer in this family member, and I really just need you to be here for this moment. Chemo's working. Okay, thanks God. Put it back up on the shelf, and this person's good. And then we're good for a little while. And then all of a sudden, school starts kind of tanking, and you're like, oh, man, hey, God, can you come help me out in school for just a minute? And, my grades are back up. School's going great. My family life's great. Okay, I'll put you back up here. And we just keep taking God off the shelf, thinking when God is just needed, then I'll go to Him. We want that blessing, but we don't want anything else that goes into it. We'll take all day long, but we ain't going to give anything back. That's how it works. We believe in God. We want to use Him for our benefit, but apart from that, there's no relationship sought after. There's nothing else that we are pouring into that relationship tank, if you will. Nothing else. So lukewarm Christians turn to God, only turn to God when they need something. Number 6, the lukewarm Christian will give whenever it's convenient. Lukewarm Christians will give whenever it is convenient. You know, since the beginning of this series and really in the last series, I've been sharing with you guys, like, my preparation for these messages have been just as challenging to me as I believe they are for you, as I believe the Tuesday nights have been in this series for you. Because this is one of those that for me is hard. It's hard to hear. It is. But for the lukewarm Christian, a lot of people, a lot of us who would consider ourselves probably lukewarm as we're listening through this would really just give when it makes us look good, right? We give when it's convenient, when we're comfortable, and we don't really have to feel any kind of sacrifice. It's really just that give whenever everything is great, not when we're struggling, but when everything is good. We'll give over there. Or we'll give when people are looking down on us, looking over to us like, oh, are they giving? Oh, they are giving. They're great people, right? We're okay with that a lot of times. You know, I'll tithe because it's a tax write-off of the year, that kind of thing. Now, you guys may not have any idea what really that means yet, but you will. That'll be a beast you're going to have to wrestle with one day, okay? The reality is we're like, why? Because this is my money. This is mine. I've worked hard for this. I deserve this. This goes to me. This is 100% mine. That's what the lukewarm Christian thinks. The committed followers of Jesus understand and know that, no, nothing I have is mine. This is God's, not mine. And we don't talk about that kind of stuff often because it's offensive and because people get a little up in arms and they're like, no, this is mine. You don't understand what I had to go through for this kind of thing. And no, you don't understand what Jesus had to go through for you. That's the reality. Lukewarm Christians, they give whenever it's convenient. And the last one, number 7, lukewarm Christian, honestly, they are not much different than the rest of the world. They're not much different than the rest of the world. They watch the same movies as everybody else. Listen to the same music like everybody else. They use the same language on the ball court whenever you get your shot blocked or in your workplace when everybody else is doing it. That's the reality. There's not much of a difference. And everything kind of seems the same. They have the same morals as everybody else. They raise their kids the same way as everybody else. They get divorced just as often as anybody else. Why? Because at the reality of it, the core of it, we're just like everybody else. And if that doesn't get you fired up as a Christ follower, I don't know what will. I shared that with you last week. If that doesn't get you fired up, that there are literally imposters, and I know that's a harsh word to use, and it's kind of like, whoa, dude, you're really coming down. But no, I'm serious. There are people that call themselves Jesus followers that do not get it, that don't understand. And they are ruining your story, your testimony. And what are you doing about it? Are you confronting? Are you asking? Are you challenging? Are you helping? Or are you hurting? He doesn't like a lukewarm Christian. Remember that word, ameo? He wants to spit it out. It's repulsive. Either say yes or no, but don't fall somewhere in the middle. And the reality is, they're not much different. It's comfortable. We don't like getting out of our comfort zones, but it's comfortable. Christianity is comfortable. You know, to be honest, one of the reasons I can kind of pinpoint some of these is not because, like, I've just had conversations with people and I'm like, oh, you're screwed up. Like, no, not at all. It's because this has been a reality in my own life. These are things that I have walked through in my own life. Not because I just see it in the people that come to the well or come to TC3 or in relationship. No, it's because I've seen this in my own life. You know, when I first became a follower of Jesus, I mean, I was on 10. Like I was ready to go. I loved Jesus. I was all on board. I was fired up. I started this thing I called the 10-10 text devotion, and it went out to like 200 people every single morning. I would write this brief kind of devotion in the morning and would send it out through a text to about 200 people or so every single morning except for Sunday. And that's what I did. I was so excited and wanted so many people to hear about this. That was what I was all about. I mean, I wanted that. And then I was brought on staff to my home church in Brentwood Baptist Church, and I was a part of the student ministry staff. And this was like my brand new dream come true. I was like fired up. I get to be a part of ministry. I was technically working full-time ministry when you look at the hours, but But I mean, like my first day, I just visualized like going into ministry. Like this is gonna be amazing. Bible studies every day. I get to be around people that are followers of Jesus, right? We're gonna walk in every single day. There's gonna be holy music just playing as we're coming in the doors, and I'm gonna sit at my desk, and my Bible's probably just gonna like float off the table or something. It's just gonna be like writing sermons for me. It's gonna be amazing, and He's just gonna put his. I mean, it was gonna be. I had some awesome dreams that you guys are not getting at all. So this is awkward. If I just stare at you for a minute, will you be laid back? Okay, I'll do that. This is really fun. Okay, great. All right. Can you guys just give me a just give me a woot woot? Come on. Okay, louder than that. One more time. I appreciate the encouragement from the right side of the room. Okay. But what happened is tragically, like I got into this place where I was so invested, so involved in ministry that I lost my relationship with the Lord. That's true. So much in ministry, so focused on what I had to do for my job and what God was calling me to in my job that I really lost touch with who God was calling me to be. Not to do, but to be. You know, Bill Hybels said one time, he said, sometimes the way pastors do the work of God destroys the work of God in them. Sometimes the way that pastors do the work of God destroys the work of God in them. And that's what happened to me. I mean, honestly, like I would read the Bible not to be in my own personal devotion, but to study for preaching, for that kind of thing, to teach. That's why I would do it. There was a time, honestly, I think I prayed more with other people than I did in my private time, where people would come up to me and I would say, hey, I'm praying for you. And the reality was I never would think twice about it after that. That was the world, the mindset. I had the show on the outside, but I was shallow on the inside. And I'll be honest, like that's one of those seasons that has come and go over the past 7, 8 years. And that's a hard thing to walk through. And you might be in that tonight. I don't know. Craig Rochelle, pastor of Life Church, said this once regarding this topic. He said, you become a full-time pastor and a part-time follower of Jesus. Become a full-time pastor and a part-time follower of Jesus. Now, I recognize that like there's not many of you in here that are in full-time ministry. But this is not just applicable to pastors or people that are in that's not the case. You can be a full-time student and a part-time follower of Jesus. You can be a full-time employee and a part-time follower of Jesus, a full-time athlete and a part-time follower of Jesus. And I woke up one day and I realized that I am living this oxymoron. That's me. I still, to this day, have to wake up and sometimes realize that, God, am I living this oxymoron? Am I being one of those, lukewarm Christians, not hot, not cold, just kind of comfortable? And tragically, that's where so many people are. It's where a lot of us find ourselves. I have this theory that it's a lot easier to be a lukewarm Christian in America than it is to be a real Christ follower in America. It's a lot easier. I think we probably could take a step back and be like, because it's comfortable. But in fact, it's so easy to be a Christian here that I think it's one of the most difficult things that we could literally walk through to be a true follower of Jesus. Like it's that difficult. It really is. The good news is that there are places where around this world where Christianity is not something like, it's not just a title. It's not just a cultural thing where we just say, yeah, that sounds great because we enjoy the community or because we want to be a part of what a church has to offer. There are literally places around the world where being a follower of Jesus costs something. Here, it doesn't really cost us anything. It doesn't. We can, feel the persecution here and there, but the reality is it doesn't cost us here what it costs some people, like literally around the world, it costs some people their job. It costs them their reputation. There are places in the world that we have probably heard about that it literally costs people their head. It costs them their life. And as horrible as that is, there's almost a blessing that comes in persecution because when we are persecuted, we truly become stronger. When suddenly even in this part of the world, as it started to kind of become more and more difficult to be a Christian, and there's starting to kind of be this pushback and this hate and really even more criticism. Suddenly it makes us, those who are followers of Jesus, it makes us stronger. Do you realize that? It makes us stronger. Why? Because it weeds out the people that are no's. It weeds out the people that are lukewarm. And I know that can kind of sound harsh. I get that. But I've told you since day one, I'm only going to be transparent and real with you. Because that's the truth. As it becomes more difficult here, I believe the church in America will be strengthened. I believe it. And it's true. We've seen it throughout history. Instead of just no, or maybe, it's either going to be yes or no. Yes or no. And the persecution might continue. But Jesus, he reminds us over and over again how blessed those are that are persecuted. And he was talking directly into a culture in Laodicea that is very similar to ours. We can see that. We can see that. They were so consumed with their wealth, with their stature, with their society, with the way that they needed to present themselves. And we have a lot of this going on. But this is what Jesus said. You say I am rich and I've acquired wealth. I don't need a thing, but you don't realize. We don't realize it. We think it's normal because that's what we're around. But we don't realize it. He says you don't realize you're wretched. You're pitiful. You're actually poor. You're blind and naked. You know, about right now, I'm willing to bet that God is doing something that he does in a really loving and powerful way. He's doing, there are probably some of those of you in here that are feeling that kind of nudge. You're feeling that conviction. Maybe you're, I don't know, maybe you're like, okay, this is me. This is me. This is what I am walking through. I'm not fully committed to him. I'm not. So what do you do if that's you? If that's you sitting in here tonight and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to feel. It's actually really simple. Open the door to your heart and invite Jesus in. You see, for some reason, we want to overcomplicate. We want to complicate like following Jesus. It's really not that difficult to make the decision. It's not a difficult process that you have to be vetted through. I mean, that's not the case. It's as simple as making the decision, as saying, Jesus, come into my life. This is what Jesus said in verse 20, that passage we just read. He said, here I am. I stand at the door knocking. I'm knocking on your door. That's what Jesus is saying. I'm not even asking you at this point to come to me because I'm at your door. I'm at your door knocking. I'm here. If you'll just open up. He says, if anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will, not maybe, not possibly, not I'll think about it. I will come in and eat with that person and they with me. And here's the deal. You don't have to get cleaned up first. You don't have to make sure your life is put in order to follow Jesus. You don't have to sit here tonight and be like, okay, I've got to make sure that I get this done, and this done before I make this decision to follow Jesus, or even recommit my life, or actually follow him. Not just be a lukewarm kind of guy or girl, but actually give him everything I got. Maybe that's, kind of what you're going through, but you don't have to get it all together. You simply let him in. He accepts you as you are. I tell you guys all the time, the name of Jesus that means the most to me, that I recognize for him, is Redeemer. And he didn't catch me at the best time of my life. In fact, he caught me at the absolute worst moment of my life. Could not have been in a further pit, sitting in jail. That's where he found me. So many of us want to think we got to get everything together, but you could not be further from the truth. He meets you where you are. He's knocking on your door right now. For those of you who say, I've done that, but I don't know him, or I've done that, I know him, but I'm comfortable, I'm just kind of complacent. There's something for you as well. You recognize Jesus is still there and you run to him. One of the greatest moments of my day that I get to do every day is when I come home from work. And Rhett, if you don't know my son, he's a little, I tell you all the time, he's like a 2-year-old crackhead, but he's got a red hair and he's awesome. I love him. He's so much fun. And one of the greatest parts of my day is opening that door and him literally running to me and saying, "Hey, Dad!" And yeah, like sitting here tonight, it's like, oh, that's cheesy that you're going to use that illustration. But I'm serious. That is what your response can be. Run to him. Don't stand off to the sideline and wait. You've had an experience with him. If you're in that place where you're like kind of on the fence, it's probably because you had a moment with him. You've experienced him in some way, shape, or form at some point. And I want to challenge you tonight, don't just sit. Pursue him. Because when you seek him, you will find him. And you'll begin to see the opposite happen with these 7 qualities. You'll want to share your faith. You'll want to give the shirt off your back. All of these things will totally be reversed because that's what he does. He is in the transformational business. That's what he does. Sanctification is the continual process of being perfected, being made new, being made righteous. That's what he does. And that fire can be lit here tonight. It doesn't have to just sit and dwindle. It can be. But it comes down to your decision. Do you open the door for the first time? Or do you run to him for maybe the second or third time, whatever it is? So tragically, we live in a world where there are many people who are just comfortable, who just kind of are sitting in what they know. They're complacent in what they know. And there's going to come a time, mark my words, there is going to come a time where you're going to have to make a decision, every single one of us. You're going to. You're either in or you're out. You're either in or you're out. And those of us who are followers of Jesus, you will be strengthened. You will be. The business he's in. Bringing people together and strengthening them. So, do you believe in God and are willing to give it all? Willing to not care what anybody else in this room or outside of this building really thinks? Are you willing to do that? Or do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe in God, but aren't willing to go overboard? Would fall under that lukewarm Christianity? That's the decision you got to make tonight. I want to challenge you. Make a decision. One way or another. Make the decision. Let's pray together. Father, this isn't an easy one to hear. This isn't an easy one to teach, but this is not an easy one to hear. God, so often we want to just sit and soak and feel like, well, you'll be there tomorrow. I'll worry about it tomorrow. But God, I pray that you would create an urgency in us in this place here tonight that is not that just sit and wait and be lazy and not disciplined in the decisions that we're making, but make the decision here tonight, one way or another. Understand that being on the fence does no good to anybody. God, I pray that tonight the decisions that would be made in this place would be decisions that are completely and utterly surrendered to you. God, break down walls of fear. Break down walls of needing acceptance from other people. Help us to focus solely on you, to care only about you, and understand that at the end of the day, you are all we need to please. And that's not a rejection of the opinions and things of people. That is simply a desire that puts you above everything else. A desire to put you above everything else. God, I pray that tonight we would go overboard, above and beyond, just like you do for us. Above and beyond. May we give it all to you.